Absolute honor to have you here. It is going to be a fun Sunday. I almost started preaching when we were closing out worship. I almost just went straight into my message because I was ready to go. So if you're here like, why is this guy up here yelling? We're a church plant. And so one of the strengths that we have of a church plant is being people that have crazy faith, to believe that God can do something special on any given week and any given Sunday. And we believe it's one of our top strengths of just believing that God's going to show up and he could do something really special. And so if you're here and you're just checking out church today, absolute honor to have you here. I know what it can be like to come to a church that maybe you just haven't been to church in a long time and you're like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to feel like in here. Are they going to ask me like, what did I do last night? Or are they going to, ask me to, give a list of my top 3 sins and struggles? We're not that type of church. We are just honored to have you in the room. And we believe that we're all people, imperfect, broken, but God's grace is good, and it covers all of us, and we're all on a journey following after him. And so we're excited, and it is Palm Sunday, so you can put your palms up. And we can have some movement and some energy in the place today. Because when I preach, just feel free, as you know, I feel free to. You can just contribute. You can let me know if something was good. You can let me know. I like that point. Well, a couple weeks ago, I said something in like ask a rhetorical question, and one person just answered, and I was like, I love it. I love it. So feel free. The only thing I ask to be off guards, if I say something you don't like, you could just reserve the, hey, I don't like that point. You could reserve that one. But I guess. If you got to let it fly, let it fly. But I'm excited. Today's a special week. Easter Sunday coming up. If you did not know, Easter Sunday is the Super Bowl of the local church, where it's a day of celebration, the biggest day of celebration that we have. And it's really incredible because, they say that 2 times a year people come to church. The most that typically aren't involved in a church is Easter and Christmas. And so I love it. I'm like, let's take advantage of it. What an opportunity that we have for people that have maybe been burned out on church, burned out on religion, and they have a fresh opportunity to maybe one last shot to see if God can do something in their life, if there's hope for them. And so it's that type of reverence that we go into this week with, of realizing that nobody's too far gone from experiencing the good news of Jesus. Nobody's too far gone. Nobody has, ruined their life so much that the grace of God can locate them, pull them out, and rescue them. And so that's our hope. That's our faith going in this week. So I echo what the team said. If you want to invite somebody, please do. Invite as many people as you can. We want to pack this place out, not so we can pack a church out, so that we can see people's lives that are far from God come close to him and experience fresh grace. And so that's what we got faith for this coming week. And I am believing that it's going to be a never forget type of Sunday, and it's going to be awesome. We are in a vision theme I've been talking about for the last month or so, since we launched on March 2nd, which is our 2025 vision for our church, which is new space, new grace. Hey, I heard somebody finish my sentence. And it's a vision that I feel like God put on my heart for our church in 2025, which is a verse out of Isaiah chapter 43. And I'm just going to read that verse today. It's really the theme of our whole series. I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to talk about what we're going to get into today. But Isaiah 43, verse 18 says this. It says, forget the former things. It doesn't say just good things or just bad things. It just says, forget it. Forget it. Don't dwell on it. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness, and I'm making streams in the wasteland. And it's a theme I felt like God put on my heart, that despite what we've seen him done before good, despite what we've walked before maybe and have held on to in the past, that God's saying forget it. That he isn't just a God that needs to recycle and repeat things that he has previously done. And if you've heard me say that a couple of weeks, I'm trying to get it into your spirit to really believe that God is not just a God that's trying to repeat one of his old miracles or repeat one of his old stories. He is a God that wants to do something brand new in your life. And if you could open up new space in your heart and in your spirit, you can really sense God give you a new divine grace for what he can do in your life. And it's going to be something that's going to be brand new. Somebody say brand new. And so today I'm going to be talking part 6 of what we're talking about today. Part 6. Do you got your Bibles? Somebody waved their phone at me. That is not a Bible. Technology is from the devil. Just kidding. It's like, wow, we have screens and I'm on an iPad. Kidding. You can go to the book of Luke, If you did not know, in our church, we believe the book of Luke is the most holy book. Just kidding. Got jokes. If you did not know, my name is Luke, so I am biased. That's how my mom and dad raised me, so I'm just gonna believe it. This is one of my favorite books, though. Each of the 4 gospel stories are a little bit different. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, if you didn't know, the 4 names. And each one of them kind of have a different perspective on the gospel, different details. Luke kind of goes in some things really in particular, which is cool. But I'm going to share something today. And because on Palm Sunday, what was interesting is the people, the week before Easter, they held up palm branches. If you did not know, what is Palm Sunday? Somebody's here like, I don't know what these people are talking about. I'm about to leave. What is Palm what? Palm Sunday. Basically, people in the time of Jesus, they had palm branches, and they would hold him up. They would hold the palm branches up as basically a sign of honor, a respect, and celebration, saying that Jesus was the king. But they would hold up on one week those branches, and then the next week they would crucify him. And it was showing the human, futility of the heart, of how in one week you can be one way, and then you just go through a tough week, and it's like all of a sudden you go a completely other way. You're like, what in the world happened in 1 week? You went from celebrating Jesus as the king to crucifying him. What happened in between? And Jesus was after people's hearts. Somebody say hearts. He was after people's hearts. Religion was after people's behavior. Jesus was after people's hearts. And so much of his stories in the gospel, so much of the stories that he told was actually about the heart of an individual. And so this is what it says, Luke chapter 6, verse 37. Jesus is talking to a huge group of people. He just gets done with one of the most iconic sermons that he's ever preached, on a Sermon on the Mount. And he's looking at these groups of people, some of them new followers, some of them new believers, some of them religious people and Pharisees of the day. And he says to them in verse 37, Jesus said, "Forsake the habit of criticizing and judging others, and you will not be criticized and judged in return. Don't condemn others, and you will not be condemned. Forgive over and over, and you will be forgiven over and over. Give generously, and generous gifts will be given back to you, shaken down to make room for more." Somebody say more. "Abundant gifts will pour out upon you with such overflowing measures that it will run over to the top. The measurement of your generosity becomes the measurement of your return." And then he goes down in verse 43, Jesus is talking about them, and why is he dealing with criticism and forgiveness and giving? Why is he talking about these seemingly specific topics? And in verse 43, here's why. It's because he's talking to people after their hearts. And he says to them, "You will never find choice fruit hanging on a bad and unhealthy tree." These trees represent our heart. You're never going to find choice fruit hanging on a bad and unhealthy heart. And rotten fruit doesn't hang on a good and healthy heart. Every tree, every heart will be revealed by the quality of fruit that it produces. You will never pick figs or grapes from thorn trees. People are known in this same way. Out of the virtues stored in their hearts, good and upright people will produce good fruit. Likewise, out of the evil hidden in their hearts, evil ones will produce what is evil. For out of the overflow of what has been stored in your heart will be seen by your fruit and will be heard by your words. I want to preach a message today, part 7. I believe I could be off with my math, or one of those numbers, part 6 or part 7, of a message called Open Heart, Open Heaven. Open heart, open heaven. Look at your neighbor and say, open heart, open heaven. Look at your other neighbor and say, if you're single, keep your heart open. I might see what the Lord can do in church. Open heart, open heaven. I believe that God is doing something brand new on the earth. I believe 2025 is not just another random year in history, but God is genuinely doing something new in the city of Minneapolis. He's doing something new in our generation. He's doing something new in shifting culture. He's doing something new in the church. He is doing something new, and he has a divine, tailor-made plan for your life. And this new thing that God is doing, it's gonna come through your heart. And if you can open up space in your heart, you can experience an open heaven in your life. Open heart, Open heaven. Open heart, open heaven. I like it. I feel like we got some energy in the house today, which is going to be a fun Sunday. Might mean I might preach for a short amount of time. Maybe not. We preach for at least 2.5 hours, sometimes 3. Kidding. 45 minutes, give or take, depending on how well you guys do your job. Has anybody in here ever made a bad decision? Somebody said no. Somebody said this week, I just wanted to ask just to see if our church was alive. Sometimes I ask questions and nobody answers, so I'm just like, we got robots in our church or we got humans? Okay, we got real people with real stuff, real struggles. Bad decisions, sometimes they're costly, sometimes they're just not that big of a deal. But let me ask you this. Is anybody here like a serious foodie? Raise your hand if you're a foodie. It's like our whole church. It's dangerous to talk about food as a preacher because the fear is people's minds start going to lunch plans. So it's like, sometimes it's not even good to start going there talking about, food, because all of a sudden you guys will start texting people for your brunch plans and, cash out of the message. But for the foodies out there, you sometimes, you like a quality meal. And so you have your specifics, you have your plans, you have your places, you like, where you like to go, what you like to eat, you scale things, you grade things, all that stuff. But there comes sometimes when all that stuff goes out the window because you're just hungry and it's time to eat. and so when you're just hungry and you don't got a lot of time and you don't got a lot of places, then you're just like, man, the whole foodie thing goes out the window and you're like, I just need some food. I'll take anything. Have you ever been there where you're like really hungry? And all of a sudden, maybe you had dinner plans or evening plans, something happened, all of a sudden, like it's getting close to really late at night, and you like past that 10 p.m. mark where like most restaurants shut down. You're like, I can't go to Chipotle. It's 10 o'clock. And then it gets closer, and then you don't know what to do, and then you're like, all of a sudden, all these places start to shut down. Then, especially once you get to like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, then your options start getting really limited because you're just like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to figure something out. Am I going to 7-Eleven and heating up a burrito? And like, what's my options? Or like, are you trying to, go to like a McDonald's and just sometimes I feel like they're hit or miss if they're open or closed. I feel like their standard isn't consistent. I feel like it's just sporadic. Some of them stay open until midnight. Some of them it's like 10 p.m. and the manager's like, I'm out for the night. Just don't know, what to expect. But there is a couple places that usually, stay open. One of those, obviously, is a place called Waffle House. Anybody like Waffle House? I love it. There's a place called Waffle House where it's like, if you got one in your area, if there's one surrounding you, they kind of have made their MO off of being open 24/7. So you can just come in there. It doesn't matter what time it is. You can go get some waffles, but pending the Waffle House. But there's another option. Usually, it's the one that, in my personal experience, is the place where I tend to go. Most of my experience when I'm getting hungry, it's late, don't know what we're gonna do, starving. You got to make a business decision. Am I going to Taco Bell or am I not? Am I going to Taco Bell or am I not? Am I going to Taco Bell or some other people call it toxic hell? Depending on where you're at on the spectrum, it is a big decision to make sometimes. Am I going to Taco Bell? Or am I going to regret that for the next 2 weeks of my life? Because of what could happen the next couple of days after that. And so I've been there. Some days I went to Taco Bell and I've just been like, man, forget it. His mercies are new every morning. And I'm banking on that tomorrow because I'm going in for some Taco Bell tonight. And it's like the best place ever because you can get like 13 things for like $10. So it's like the only place in the world where you can get more things for less the single-digit dollar amount, which is just awesome. So it's a miracle in itself. It's multiplication. And so I've been there, a bunch of times where I've gotten Taco Bell and then only later to regret it. And I've been there some times where the Lord's given me wisdom. I'm just like, I ain't going tonight. Fasting tonight, and I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna hold it off, and we're gonna see what happens. But it can be a funny thing to think about what's open and what's closed. And I want to encourage you this morning. You're like, man, what is this guy talking about? Taco Bell? He's up here just having fun. We believe church is supposed to be fun. We believe we can have a lot of fun in church, but I want to encourage you this morning when it comes to things being open and when it comes to things being closed, like that story that I'm telling of, at times when you're hungry and it's late at night and you don't know what you're going to do, you're confined to what is open and to what is closed. And you really don't have much control. So pending what's open, you might be able to go there. Pending what's closed, you cannot go there. And so we would live at times our lives pending in different areas, in different situations. We are relegated, restricted by what is open and what is closed. But I came to stir somebody's faith up this morning, to lift somebody's faith, to remind you that when it comes to the kingdom of heaven, because Jesus literally came from heaven to earth, that we are not confined to a closed heaven. We are not living our Christian lives day after day, night after night, wondering, is heaven open? Jesus literally came to break the barrier of religion, to open up heaven so that we could experience heaven on earth. And so because heaven is open, I got good news this morning to let you know that we don't live off the economy of earth. We live off of heaven's economy. And just to let you know, heaven's economy is booming. Heaven's economy is explosive. Heaven's economy is not running out, is not running dry. We don't live off of who's in presidential office or what the tariffs are. We live off of knowing who sits on that throne room in that seat is the God of heaven. He is the King of kings. He is the Lord of lords. He has never ran out of supply, and he is not going to start now. Heaven is open because of Jesus. It's not open because of religious duty or religious works. It's open because of one person, and his name is Jesus. He opened the key to heaven for us. And so because heaven is open, the question is your heart open? Heaven's open 24/7. Because of Jesus, we have access to an open heaven. So the question is your heart open? Because if you can open up fresh space in your heart, you can experience fresh grace from heaven. Jesus was after people's hearts. He was trying to get them to open up space in their heart. And it constantly confused the religious people because they're like, what is he doing? He's after people's hearts, and it disrupted their religious routines. And so they didn't even know what to do. They're like, wait a second, Jesus is after our heart? What does this even mean? And I love this because when you think about an open heaven, I want to ask you this morning, are you living like heaven's opened? Are you living like heaven is opened? Or are you living like there's a closed heaven, like a ceiling over your life? And on good days when you have it together, heaven might be open. But on bad days when you mess up, heaven's closed. Because that's not the gospel that we believe in. The gospel that we believe in is, it's not even about you. It's about what Jesus did for you to open up heaven. So are you living like there's an open heaven? Are you dreaming like there's an open heaven? Because I can ask somebody, what do you believe God's about to do in your life right now? Their response could tell me a whole lot about the size of that heaven they believe is open over their life. You can ask somebody like, I don't know. And that's okay if you're there, but you can talk with some people, they're like, man, I'm believing for this, that, and the other. And somebody can look at them and be like, what? Like, you do not have those resources. You do not have that capability. And that person could be like, you're right, but I know my God does. And I know heaven is open. Are you living like heaven's open? Are you dreaming like heaven's open? Are you praying like heaven's open? Because it's felt like maybe even the past 4 years, 5 years, give or take, it's felt like at times there might have been a closed heaven. It can feel like that at times. It can feel like things are just restricted. It can feel like some things maybe gotten into our heart, closed our heart off. And could it be that heaven's always been open? We've just closed our heart off to the open heaven. And so I came today for some heart surgery. Josh, my fellow heart surgeon friend, some heart surgery today, believing that Jesus wants to come after your heart. Heaven's always open. The question is your heart? I love this because Jesus literally came to bring heaven to earth. Sometimes it's good just to remind ourselves some of the core basic beliefs that we believe in as Christians. He came to bring heaven to earth, which means we're not waiting till we get to heaven to experience heaven. So the whole goal then of a Christian is daily. Why do we follow Jesus? I follow Jesus because he is the bridge to heaven in eternity, and he is the bridge to heaven on earth. That's why I follow Jesus. I tried some of that other stuff. I'm that type of guy, like, man, if this works, okay, cool. So I'm not the guy that I tried before I rededicated my life to God. I tried it. Well, if they believed in this, it didn't work. Led me to some dead ends, into some dead paths of feeling unfulfilled, finding stuff that was running out, because man's supply always runs out. Man's economy always fluctuates. There is only one economy that is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that alone is the stability that gives my soul the faith and the foundation to day after day, despite what I feel, despite what the forecast is. I know who my God is. And because I know who my God is, I know what's available. And there is an open heaven available. So the question is your heart available? Because if you can open up your heart, you can experience a fresh grace from heaven. Jesus was always going after people's hearts to enlarge their heart, to enlarge and expand their thinking. And I love this about Jesus, because I don't know how you were raised, but if you're like me, sometimes I was raised thinking like, man, Jesus was like, he only like wore a white robe and just, I don't know, like he kind of just, barely got by. And it's just like this really small view and small understanding of who Jesus is. But when you read the Gospels, it will be a direct confrontation to your mindsets, because Jesus was enlarging people's thinking, enlarging people's mindsets constantly. Like, you're thinking too small, you're thinking too low, come up higher. And I want to show you my kingdom that's available. And so here's what it's crazy is, Jesus would always be talking to the religious people, and he would be saying like this. He would say, you've heard it said, but I say to you this. You've heard it said, but I say to you this. What was he trying to say? He was trying to say, you're stuck in this old space. And so what Jesus is going to do is he's going to basically come up to them and say, hey, you've heard it said this, old space. I'm about to bring you something new. And if you put your faith a hold of it, it's going to take you into a new grace. He said it like this. He said, you heard it said, don't murder. But I say to you, don't even have hate in your heart. You've heard it said, don't commit adultery. But I say, purity starts in your heart. You've heard it said, love your neighbor. But I say, love your enemy. You've heard it said, the harvest is 4 months away. I say to you, open up your eyes and look, for the harvest is ripe. Because the truth is, Jesus did not come to improve your behavior. Jesus came to transform your heart. He came to transform your heart. And so this is what he's going after people's hearts. The religious people could only see what was happening on the outside. And I love Jesus so much because he wasn't even moved by the exterior. He looked straight into a person's heart. Jesus has always looked into people's heart. He's always chosen people based on their heart. He picked David because of his heart. And the Bible says that for man looks on the outside, but God looks at the heart. Because here's why. Your heart is the connection to the flow of God's kingdom. Your heart alone is the connection to the flow. Your heart is the connection to the flow. There's a flow in God's kingdom if you didn't know. There's a flow. Heaven's always operating in a flow. There's seasons of a flow of what God's doing, what he's pouring out. what he's doing on earth. And your heart is the connection. And if you're here this morning and you're like, man, I just haven't felt connected to Jesus. Maybe at one point in my life I did, or maybe I never have. Maybe you've been overthinking it. Maybe you've been stuck in your head, trying to get your head to connect with Jesus. Maybe you've been looking at other areas of your life and just not feeling disconnected. The message of the gospel is it's a heart connection. Jesus wants your heart. The heart is the connection to the flow. Proverbs 4 says this. It says, so above all, guard the affections of your heart, for they affect all that you are. Pay attention to the welfare of your innermost being, for from there flows the wellspring of life. This is an age-old Bible principle of God saying, hey, above anything else, you got to guard your heart. Because what God's saying is everything that's going to flow from your life is going to first flow from your heart. So what you're seeing come out of your life is connected to what is flowing through your heart. And so if you don't like necessarily what's coming out, if you don't necessarily like what you're seeing in your life, the good news of the gospel is because of Jesus, you can soften your heart, connect it to him, and get an opportunity to see new things start to flow through you. So the connection to God, the connection to this kingdom is through your heart. And this is what Jesus is saying in Luke chapter 6. He's after people's hearts, and he's looking at them and saying, what is your heart connected to? What is your roots connected to? He's trying to tell them this story about a tree, and basically saying the fruit is only a byproduct of the root of the tree. So the fruit's going to be connected to the root. And he's trying to get people to be thinking, hey, don't be thinking about just all of these exterior things you see hanging on a tree. Look at someone's heart. He was after people's heart. And so that puts really the ball in our court to go, are your roots connected in Jesus? Are your roots connected to Jesus? Because in my life, I don't want to give anything the power that I put my roots in that does not have the power to save me. I don't want to put my roots in anything that doesn't have the power of a supernatural supply. And so this is a great Sunday if you're here and you're like, oh man, I think I have some roots in some other places. I think I might have some roots in some relationships. I think I might have a root in a career. I might have a root in a traumatic experience, or where all of a sudden you start to connect your whole life to something else besides Jesus. And Jesus would constantly lay things out to be really simple for us, is trying to get people's hearts wholly and solely connected to Jesus. And he says this in Luke chapter 6. Right before he talks about you'll never find choice fruit hanging on a bad, unhealthy tree, he says these three things in verse 37, which is really interesting that he picked these three specific things out. Jesus said in verse 37, forsake the habit of criticizing and judging others. You will not be criticized and judged in return. Don't condemn others and you won't be condemned. Forgive over and over and you will be forgiven over and over. And then he says, number 3, give generously and generous gifts will be given back to you, shaken down to make room for more. So there's 3 things that Jesus is telling, hey, if you want to open up your heart to experience an open heaven, here's 3 ways you can open up your heart. Are you ready? One person. Okay, cool. I'm coming to preach to you. If you want to open up your heart. Number 1, forsake criticizing. Forsake criticizing. He literally says to them, forsake the habit of criticizing and judging, and you will not be criticized and judged in return. So I'm coming after somebody this morning with a critical spirit. That maybe that thing has been alive for too long, and maybe you even know it. And maybe even it's been sitting there and it's been sitting idle in you, and you kind of know that critical spirit is keeping you from a deeper connection with Jesus, but you're just letting that thing stay kind of half alive. Today, we're coming to evict that thing because it's in the space of your heart that's blocking the space of God and heaven from being there. Critical spirit is like a boomerang. If you throw that thing out, it's only a matter of time before it's coming back to you. Matthew chapter 7 says this. Who likes boomerangs, by the way? as a kid playing with boomerangs. Those things never worked. False advertisement. Be in my backyard as a kid, like, I saw this commercial, just chucking that thing, only to realize that thing is never coming back. Mom, I need a new toy. Boomerang's done. Matthew 7, it says this. Don't pick on people. Somebody needs to hear this morning. Jesus is saying to the religious people, Matthew 7, don't pick on people. Jump on their failures. Criticize their faults. Maybe you're here this morning and you haven't been in church in a while and you're like, man, this is all I know of church or of Christianity. Jesus came to confront that. He says, don't pick on people. Jump on their failures, criticize their faults unless you, of course, want the same treatment. That critical spirit has a way of boomeranging. If you're wondering where I got that from. It's easy to see a smudge on your neighbor's face and be oblivious to the ugly sneer on your own. Do you have the nerve to say, let me wash your face for you, when your own face is distorted by contempt? It's this whole traveling roadshow mentality all over again, playing a holier-than-thou part instead of just living your part. Wipe that ugly sneer off your face and you might be fit to offer a washcloth to your neighbor. Jesus was not playing around with these religious people, because what they were doing is people that were trying to come to Jesus. People that had issues and real sin and real struggles. When they started to come to Jesus, the religious people started to critically just go at every reason why they shouldn't come to Jesus. Or you got this wrong, and you dress this way, and you talk this way. And it was constantly a critical spirit about people. But here's oh my gosh, I love this about the gospel. Jesus was never looking at what was wrong with people. He was looking at what was right in them. He was never looking what was wrong with people. He was always looking for what was right within them. The religious leaders constantly scanned the crowd to find out what's wrong. Why is he eating with sinners? Why are they not fasting? Why is he healing on the Sabbath? Why is he letting this woman off the hook who was caught in adultery? Why is he literally getting right next to that sinner at that table and having dinner? Jesus constantly was scanning people, looking for people's hearts to say, man, who can I heal? Who has a little bit of faith? Oh my gosh, that person's taking one step closer to me. Let me help you take the next one. Jesus was saying, I see your faith. Go and sin no more. Your sins are forgiven. Come down, Zacchaeus. He was constantly giving an invitation for people to come to him. And he never weaponized the truth to make people feel small. Jesus never weaponized the truth to make other people feel small or other people to feel excluded. He is the truth. Nothing but the truth. And I came today to spit the truth. And nothing but the truth. Because this is what Jesus does. He came with the truth, but the truth never made other people, he never used it and weaponized it to make people feel small. So Jesus was constantly in a confrontation with the religious people of the day. With this religious spirit, this critical spirit that was closing people's hearts to literally a move of God right in front of them. Which is wild, because sometimes we just read this and we can just think, okay, yeah, well, that was Jesus literally in the flesh as a human, literally on earth. How could they have missed him right in front of them? But we fail to realize now, because Jesus is in heaven, he sent the Holy Spirit, lit the match to the church and to the flame of the church that we still are here today because of, that you can be right in front of a new move of God and miss it. What if God was doing something brand new right now? What if in 3 years from now we look back and say these early days were the beginning of a revival? We're beginning of a move of God. We're beginning of something that God was about to do in this city that unlocked and shook all of our faith to what we believed was possible. But you were right there in the middle of it and did not even know it, because there was some piece of your heart that was still closed off to it. Because you can be right in front of Jesus, right in front of his presence, and yet actually be closed off to it. The danger of a critical spirit, if you're taking notes, you can write this down. The danger of a critical spirit. You can be in a supernatural environment, but have no supernatural experience. You can be right in the middle of a supernatural environment where God's doing something. People are full of faith. And you're still going like, I don't think those people are actually full of faith. I think this guy's on Red Bull up there telling jokes about Taco Bell. And my job's not to try to convince you to just convince you. I'm up here because I believe in this. I believe in what God's doing. And I believe that he wants to do something new in you. And I believe he has a plan for you. He has a purpose for you. Your best days are in front of you, not behind you. You don't have to stay stuck in that old place. You can see a fresh grace. Open up heaven. Open up heaven over your life for God to use you in a fresh way. And so that critical spirit, it's got to go, because it could be closing your heart to an open heaven. And it can keep your heart and keep you stuck in something that was old. If you want to see God do something new, you're going to have to create new space in your heart. If you give it to Jesus, he can heal it. Number 2, Jesus went at the disciples and he's telling them 3 things. And I even read this a couple times because I'm like, man, Jesus, why did you say these 3 things? They were really specific and maybe not as explosive as you think from a wow standpoint. But there were 3 particular things that Jesus was saying, yeah, you think these things are small, but they could be having a way bigger impact on your life than you know right now. Number 2, he says, forgive quickly. That's what he says. He said, forgive quickly. And he says, over and over, and you will be forgiven over and over. Jesus is talking to the disciples, and he's basically like, hey, there's going to be people that don't believe what you believe in. There's going to be people that offend you. There's going to be people that turn their back on you. There's going to be people that disagree with you. There's going to be people that hurt you. We live in a fallen, imperfect world. And there's going to be people that actually do some things to you that are not right, that are not okay, that are painful, that are traumatic, that are deep, that are wounds that can really stick in your heart and all of a sudden take root. So why Jesus was talking about forgiveness is because what he was saying, if you're holding unforgiveness in your heart, it's going to hold a root in your spirit and block the fresh flow of forgiveness that Jesus has for you. And I know this one might hit some people. It might be something where it's like, just a question today, who in your life right now do you need to go forgive? This might be somebody's first day at church. And they're like, man, what's this guy saying? But it might be the exact thing that's been blocking and making that disconnect between you and your walk with God. And Jesus was talking to his disciples of like, hey, forgiveness is going to keep the flow going. There's a flow, and your heart's connected to it. And there's a flow of God's kingdom that never runs dry, never runs out. It's never failed anybody. It is an overflow of heaven, of kingdom, of peace, of joy, of power, of provision. So the question is not how do necessarily we always experience the overflow. The question is what's blocking the flow? Heaven wants to pour out over your life. What's blocking the flow? Unforgiveness can block the flow. And I know it's painful and I know it can be hard, but how long are you going to hold on to it? Because if you can give it to Jesus today, he can give you he could heal your heart and you can experience a fresh flow and a fresh connection with Jesus. How long are you going to hold on to that thing? You know, it's as time goes on in relationships, my wife and I, we now are marriage veterans. We're over the 10-year mark. Yeah, you can go ahead and give it up. That's a huge deal. And if you're wondering why, you can ask Jory. She holds the wisdom and the peace for why our marriage has made it 10 years and is what it is because of her love and her grace, her patience, her kindness, her prayer for me and for both of us. But as time goes on, it's funny because there's some things in marriage that you learn, years down the track. We got married when we were young, so we kind of had the opportunity to kind of grow up together to a degree. I was, how old was I, babe? 21. She was 23. And so I got married fresh out of college. And but we learned some things over the years because when you get married, you realize that you're both coming from 2 different backgrounds, 2 different family dynamics. And you can see some things quick in a marriage. Is one of them, it's like, which family side just like argues and talks it out loud? and which family side kind of holds stuff in. And so it was always fun to kind of see that dynamic. And I came from a family that was more so like, we're going to let you know. We're going to talk it out. And Jory came from a family that was probably a little bit more graceful, forgiving, and unoffendable. And so there would be times where in our marriage, especially early on, you know, we would all of a sudden be in an argument or something would be going on, and we're just like not in a flow, not in a rhythm, bad week, 2 weeks, whatever. And all of a sudden we would have like a come to Jesus moment in a conversation, and we would be talking about stuff, and I would always be amazed because we would be talking, and Joy at times would be like, yeah, you know, a couple weeks ago, this happened, and you did this. And I was like, a couple weeks ago? A couple weeks ago? You're right, I did do that, but I was not even thinking about that. I moved on. I totally did that. I was wrong. That was my failure. That was my mistake, my room for growth. But I didn't even realize that. And so now we've come, as we grow in marriage, that the goal is now is like, I messed up. Do you forgive me? Trying to go as quick as possible to keep the flow going. So now it's almost like who you know, in our marriage, it can be a fun thing to go, okay, when one person does something, the mature one, the healthy one can come and just ask for forgiveness right away and try to clear the air right away. And what's crazy is it could be a couple weeks at times, but what's really interesting in people's lives is that all of a sudden a couple weeks can then turn into a couple years. A couple years can then turn into a couple decades. And if you're not careful, you can find yourself near your deathbed. And I know I'm saying some things that right now are really, it's a big deal to be speaking about this, but you can find some people near their deathbed, old, cranky, critical spirit, closed heart, went through real pain, real stuff, but you trace it back and it can be a small seed of unforgiveness that took root in somebody's heart and blocked a flow of heaven functioning and operating through their life. And under the sound of my voice today, I would offer to you and put it in front of you what an opportunity that we have right now to just take inventory of your heart and just to make sure there's nothing holding root in that place that is taking up space from heaven flowing through you. Who do you need to forgive today? Who do you need to go to and say, I'm sorry, let that thing go. Get it on, move on. Jesus has new plans for you. He has new grace for you. And so Jesus, he's talking with his disciples, and they must have seen Jesus forgiving people constantly. And so Matthew 18 says this. It says, later Peter approached Jesus and says, hey, Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive my fellow believer who keeps offending me? 7 times? Which is like, why did he ask 7 times? Just like, let me throw a number out there and see if Jesus agrees or not. Jesus took whatever came out of his mouth, flipped it right back on him and said, not 7 times, Peter, but 70 times 7, which was not even a number. Wasn't about a calculation. What Jesus is saying is 70 times 7 is a number that you probably can't even count. So what he's saying is stop keeping score. Did you know this? 7 times 70, he's not saying, hey, go do the math and then put this on a spreadsheet and count how many people you forgive. Because then you'll start keeping score. He gave an outlandish number to just let him know, don't keep track. Don't keep score. Rip that sheet up. Why? Because I have ripped the sheet up of your mistakes as far as the east is from the west. So I have forgotten the sins in the past and the brokenness that's in you. Why we forgive is because Jesus has forgiven us. We forgive others because Jesus has forgiven us. Forgiving others is going to keep the flow going. It's going to keep heaven open over your life. And if you find any of a micro dose of a closed heart, I believe God is speaking to you today. Open up some space in your heart. Jesus wants to come in there, and he wants to make his home in there to bring fresh flow of heaven. Are you with me? Number 1, forsake criticizing. Number 2, forgive quickly. And number 3, freely give. He ends with this one. Freely give. He says in verse 38, he says, give generously, and generous gifts will be given back to you. Shaken down to make room for more. This is crazy, by the way, that Jesus says this. Crazy that he says, give generously and generous gifts will be given back to you. Shaken down to make room for more. Abundant gifts will pour out upon you with such overflowing measure that will run over to the top. This right here, what Jesus says, and I'm going to break it down for a second, it absolutely shifted people's entire lives of how they viewed giving, how they viewed money, how they viewed everything that they had a short-term, temporary access to what they held on to on life on earth. He says, give generously, it will be given back to you. This verse right here, shaken down to make room for more. He's trying to tell people when you give, it's making room for more. When you give, it's making room for the more that I want to give you. And here, this is a quick part on this. This is what this means, okay? Giving. I wonder what your definition of giving is. I wonder when you think about giving, what comes to mind? I wonder when you think about giving, what's your revelation around giving? Because my revelation that God has given me, and I cannot wait to in future days talk about it more with why our church is called Overflow Church. It's because the overflow is connected to a source and a supply that never runs dry. And one of my kind of top, how I frame what generosity is, what giving is, I frame it in a way as giving, it makes room for more. It makes room for more. And so you can only really look at giving from two ways. Giving from abundance says I'm making room for more. When you have an abundant mindset, when you have an understanding of who Jesus is in your spirit, giving, it makes room for more. So you give it from abundance. When you give from lack, here's what lack says. Lack says, I'm running out. Every time you go to give a gift, every time you go to give, buy someone's dinner, every time you go to give, God puts it on your heart, buy a pair of shoes for someone. God puts it on your heart, buy this person's lunch. God puts it on your heart, give that coat in your closet, give that jacket away, help somebody here. Give that homeless person $20 that's been sitting in your cup holder that you are just wondering what to do with it. Give it away. Lack says every time I give something away, I'm just running out. I'm just running out. And I think that this is a silent, absolute killer to our soul of living day after day with this fear of running out. I think it's a silent assassin in our faith to constantly make us feel like we don't have enough, to constantly make us feel like we aren't enough, to constantly make us feel like we can't do what God's called us to do, like we can't give what God's called us to give, like we can't step into the place and the position that God's put us in to shine bright and to give, because we're constantly afraid and plagued by what we feel like we do not have, because we feel like we're running out of ideas, running out of creativity, running out of money, running out of time, running out of energy, running out of joy, running out of peace. And all of a sudden life can start to feel so heavy and so overwhelming and just like, oh my gosh, like I don't have what it takes. I don't have any of this enough. And so giving starts becoming, I'm just constantly running out. I'm constantly running out. And then we don't even realize it, but as a matter of time goes off, we look at the state of our soul and we realize that our soul has become weary. Our soul has become tired. Our soul has become feeling overwhelmed and exhausted with trying to keep up with getting more. All of a sudden we see everybody on social media, people's lives look to be farther along than ours. This family looks like they have it more together than ours. This person, although I could be enjoying in real time what God's doing in my life, I see somebody 2 steps ahead. I don't have enough to give like they give. I can't be like they are. And all of a sudden we just find ourselves in this posture of constantly sitting here in this place of feeling like we do not have enough and we aren't enough. Because as time goes on in this faith, we got bills, we got real problems, we got real issues. It's like, oh my gosh, I can feel it. But Jesus was talking to them saying, when you give, it's just making room for more. And I love this because the Bible also talks about having childlike faith. And I often think about that and I'm like, why? Because children don't have bills. That's why. But could it be that Jesus actually wants us to live our spiritual life in that carefree, worry-free posture? Because this sounds too good to be true to me at times. I'm just like, cool. When I get to heaven, only to realize Jesus is trying to bring heaven to earth in my heart now. Childlike faith. And y'all know my little kid preaches more sermons than I do up here, because we've been having family dinners every week, a couple times a week. We've been going to a restaurant one night of the week as a family dinner, which is always a gamble and toss up with toddlers. So is this waitress, is a meal, piece of the meal going to get flown, or are we going to keep it on the plate tonight? And we go to this restaurant and we get some food. And it's funny because with the kids' meals comes, they get a whole setup, which is unfair. Kids' meals get a proper meal, they get a drink and a dessert with it. I mean, this is nonsense. I get nothing, 3 times the price, no apple juice, no dessert. It's a problem. And so my little guy, Jax, he's my oldest son, he's 6. And it's funny because we've been going and he gets his apple juice, and all of a sudden, you know, the other week we were having a meal and he gets his apple juice, and I look over and like 15 seconds later, that thing was just gone. Just completely slurped that thing, and it was gone. My other son was slow sipping his, and it was like, you know, almost the whole thing was still in there. And they know that they gotta like take it easy with the apple juice, my guy. Like there's some sugar in there. We don't know what's gonna happen, and just take it easy. And I don't want to be going to the bathroom 3 times during this dinner, trying to have a good family time. And it was funny because I told him, like, bro, why'd you drink that so fast? And he looks at me and goes, so you can buy me another one. Doesn't even think twice. Does not think at all what he is losing. Just sitting there at dinner, not even thinking at all about what's gone, not thinking about that apple juice, not thinking about that extra $3.20 Dad's gonna have to put on that bill, because that one's not for free. They charge you for the second one. But he's not thinking at all of what he's lost. He's not thinking of all of what is lacking. He is just realizing, well, if I need another apple juice, my dad's gonna give me another apple juice. And I came to preach this morning and to remind somebody that the whole gospel that we believe in is not about what you don't have, because here's the reality. We don't have enough. I am running out of time. I am running out of supply. I am running out of strength. I am running out of content to preach messages. I am running out of my own supply. But the good news of the gospel is not what we run out of. It's when you run out of what you have, God will give you what He has. This is the gospel. He has more than enough available for you. He has more than enough peace. He has more than enough mercy. He has more than enough forgiveness. There's no sin that you have paid that has written your story off. God can give you a new story today. He can give you a new script today. That area that has felt like it is an absolute area of lack and feels like, man, it is dry. When you run out of what you have, that's when God can give you what He has. So give Him that criticism today. Give Him that unforgiveness today. And give Him what He's calling you to give. If it's a seed, give it. If it's a gift, give it. If it's your talent, give it. If it's a song He called you to write, write it. If it's a sermon He called you to preach, write it. If it's a book He called you to author, write it. Whatever God called you to give, do not wait. Start to give it. And as you start to give it, His supply will meet your insufficiency. And together there can be a collision with heaven. He's not looking for your heart to be full. He's looking for it to have space. Open heart, open heaven. Open heart, open heaven. New space, new grace. God's doing something new on earth. He's doing something new in this city. What if you believed it? What if you believed it? What if you walked out of here going, I believe this. I believe this. I'm going to open up fresh space in my heart, because I'm not opening it up for a man. I'm not opening it up for new space in a career or anything from what man can do. I'm opening up space for heaven. I'm opening up space for God and His grace. This is what Jesus is trying to do in your life. And He says in Scripture, in Romans 10, the whole gospel can be summed up here. If you can believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, you will be saved.